Welcome back to Reset Your Journey. This is part 2 of our video on boondocking. We'll discuss water and power and how to conserve them, how to find water and dump stations, how long you can go boondocking, etiquette, upgrading your systems, and how social media can affect how boondocking looks. Let's talk about water. First thing I need to mention is that we do drink the water from our tanks, so it needs to be clean and safe.
You have to keep that tank sanitized. If you ever run across bad water, then that tank has to be sanitized immediately. The last thing you can have in a rig full of a family is dysentery. So a clean tank is important. So we really need to preface that, because some people drink bottled water and they don't drink the water from their tank.
They just use it for showering and washing and that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So where do we find this water?
Before we start looking for water and dump stations, that we first always look for the free options, because there's a lot of places you can pay for this. We're on a fixed income, so free is first. After all of these months, we have sort of developed a system that works well for us, and I'm going to run down this one by one. And the very first thing I use is iOverlander, and that'll show me where I am, and it shows me specifically where I can find fresh, safe water. Now, once I find that, then I go to a satellite image on Google and I look at it, because it might be at a dump station. And if that potentially safe water is right next to the dump station, from what I've seen in the past, people use that water to clean out their stinky slinkies and dirty pipes, and you do not want to use that water.
No.
And it might be potable, and that's fine, but what it's going through is not.
Right,
So
I still don't want to risk that.
use caution with those things. So that's the first thing I do, iOverlander, and then a satellite image. If that doesn't work out, you start making phone calls.
Yeah.
And they'll usually tell you, and sometimes they'll say, you know what, we're not sure about our water, but we know you can get it someplace else. So a phone call is crucial. The last resort is a campground. And they will usually sell you water. It's inexpensive, and sometimes it's worth it because you know you're getting safe water. All else fails, you can pull into one of their vacant spots for 15 minutes, fill your tanks, pay for it that way, and leave. You're not paying to stay the night, you're just paying for the water. That's how we find water, and that is one of the most important things about boondocking, is making sure you always have a source and having water available. All right, let's talk about dump stations. You got to get rid of that stuff. You can't leave it in your tanks. You don't want it exploding out. That's kind of gross. You apply the gloves first. Do not touch the slinky without the gloves. Sorry about the sunglasses, but I don't want to get poo in my eyes. Poo time! Oh, yeah!
And definitely don't dump it on land.
No, don't. If you're staying on U.S. forest lands or BLM land, don't dump that, period.
No. Now, you might be able to dump some of your gray water on BLM or National Forest lands, but make sure you look into that first and call about that before you do that.
No, for sure. So how do we find dump stations? And that's always a big question. That was actually a huge question when we got started boondocking.
Yeah.
And what has evolved so far is, again, we use iOverlander for so many things, and that is so clear and concise about reporting where there are dump stations. So first I go on there for our local area. And when I find a few, I'll do a Google satellite image to see if they're easy to get into and out of, because sometimes they're very tight, and that doesn't always work if you're really long. And I also make sure if they are free or they cost something, because we're always looking for free first. So once I find that and I do the satellite image, generally speaking, when we are somewhere, I will do this as soon as we move in, because we're going to be in that land for 5 to 14 days. And that gives us the opportunity to jump in our truck, and when we're out getting groceries or whatever, or getting gas, then we will go and scout out these dump stations. And that way it's kind of a check off my list. Before we leave, I know, okay, we're going to be heading out north or south or whatever direction we're going, and we're going to this particular dump station and this particular place to get water. And it's just, it eliminates that anxiety. So it's not that difficult. Sometimes, as a last resort, if you can't find anything and there are no state parks around, you go to an RV park. You call them up and say, hey, can I pay to come in and dump? And sometimes they'll charge you $10, sometimes $5, sometimes $15. But all else fails, you pull into a vacant spot and dump your tanks, fill your water, and go. So we used to think it was very difficult to find these places. And I do want to also add this point that the states, Utah, Idaho, a lot of Arizona, they get it. There are dump stations at so many gas stations. It's wonderful. It's almost like the boondocker's paradise. You don't find that out east or in the Midwest so far that we're finding. So that's how we find dump stations.
So how long can you go boondocking? Kind of depends on some things. First is how big your tanks are and how well you can conserve the water and your power.
And can you recharge that power?
True. Just remember, the party's over when the water runs out.
First off, how large is that capacity for your freshwater tank? If you've got 29 or 30 gallons, you're not gonna go very long. Some of the rigs that are built that we discussed before, the ORVs, ATCs, toy haulers, basically, are going to have 80 to 100 gallons of fresh water. What we have found as a family of 4, and we are conservative with our water, but we do not slow down how much we drink. We slow down how much we shower and how we wash dishes and how we wash our hands and brush our teeth. For those, we trickle. We can get about 10 days out of 80 to 90 gallons.
Right.
So we're averaging 10 gallons a day. The days that we leave the rig for a while to go out and do something, obviously we're using less, and that factors into that. So we can sometimes go longer. But 10 gallons a day for a family of 4 is what we are averaging.
Also, arrive with full freshwater tanks and empty black water and gray tanks.
Yes, and have additional water in your tow vehicle if you can. We use 3 7-gallon Scepter tanks that we use. If we get super low, I just use those instead of dumping it into the tank. I use them to fill all of our water bottles throughout the day and drink straight from that. That's been a great key to saving water.
Now, some other little tips to help prolong your water and conserve. One thing we do is we have a small tote bin that fits under our sink, mainly our kitchen sink.
Yes.
Our bathroom sink's way too small, but
that's transportable. We put it in the shower too.
And we put it in the shower to catch all your wash water, and then we toss it out when we're on BLM land. We just toss it out away from the rig.
You use a basic biodegradable soap. You wipe the oil off your dishes, and you're safe to throw that out. I mean, technically speaking, if you are camping in a tent and washing your dishes outside, it's the same thing. Now, I also use that water to drown our campfires when we're allowed to have campfires. I have no excuse not to drown that fire. In fact, I drown it, wash more dishes, I drown it again, and before we go to bed, I take the rest of whatever someone has showered with and I drown it again, because we don't take that risk.
No, and we also use a lot of paper products that when we can do fires, we
burn our paper.
Yeah, we burn our paper trash too.
You know, in the past, I was like, that's so wasteful, that's terrible. But under these circumstances, it is more wasteful to wash a dish than it is to burn or toss that paper product that is biodegradable.
We trickle wash.
We trickle water.
But then in the shower.
Oh, Navy showers, man. Get used to those Navy showers.
Turn off the water while you're soaping and sudsing up, and then quick rinse everything off, right?
And it's amazing how little water you can use. As you're catching your water, throw that out.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It's a good one. You may not think about it, but you should do it, is throw away your teepee. Put it in the trash.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
When you live in a rig, don't flush your toilet paper.
No.
Put it in the trash next to you.
Yeah, because one, it kind of gunks things up and clogs things up.
It clogs things. It can ruin the sensors in there.
And fill up your tank.
And it fills things quickly.
Yeah. That doesn't fill up as quick as the gray tanks, though, so that's why we are really careful with catching our water.
And what a difference that makes. But I'll tell you what. Okay, it's going to stink when it's in the trash can because you've been wiping your bum with it. No, we have not experienced, on one of those step-on, flip the lid up cans.
There's a lid on it. So.
There's no smell coming from there.
No,
it's
maybe
absolutely
a quick second
fine.
If there's a little
if one of the boys have really destroyed it. But that's more from the toilet they destroyed.
Right.
But no, that is not an issue. So don't flush your toilet paper. That makes such a big difference.
Yeah, and take that trash, all the trash that you kind of build up, make sure you can put that somewhere out of your rig so it doesn't stink too much. So like put it all nice and tight and put it in
your tow vehicle.
In your tow vehicle, but you might want to put all that trash in your
passenger section
yeah.
overnight, especially if you are where there are mice, bears, or any animals that are going to be attracted to that because they can smell it, and the small ones can get into your truck bed.
Into your truck bed,
but not so much. Yeah, oh yeah. So
hi, little mouse.
I have opened that truck bed, and then hey, you are absolutely adorable, but I don't really want you here. Yeah. So yeah. Put that in the passenger section until you get to a Walmart or a gas station or somewhere where you disperse that trash. Now, I do dump our trash in places that I patron. I don't feel like it's right to just stop somewhere and dump our trash. But when I walk into a Walmart and I put 2 bags of trash in and I walk out with $200 worth of groceries, I think it's fair.
That's fair. And then there's some dump stations. They have big dumpsters.
Yeah. So, and that's okay too.
Okay, so we talked about conserving your water because that's number 1, but the next thing to conserve is your power.
Oh yes, and you can rip through your batteries really fast if you don't. Yeah.
That's the number 1 thing that people do in the beginning, I think, is
we did it.
Yeah, wearing out your batteries because you're running your heater at night or something, and you don't realize that it takes the energy to
run the fans. Yeah, you don't think about that.
So
like, I got plenty of propane. I got 60 pounds. No big deal.
Yeah. So you can boondock in cooler climates too. That way you won't have to run those things like your air conditioning.
One of the big things that we do to conserve our electricity is when it comes evening, and now we are entirely on battery, and we have our solar is no longer charging.
Right.
We use lanterns, solar-based lanterns,
they're so cool.
to light everything in the rig. So we carry, we keep one in the bathroom, we keep one in the dinette, and then we keep one in the bedroom. And we just use those back and forth. And then we recharge them every few days out in the sunlight on the truck bed.
We charge our devices in the car too, or the truck when we're driving around.
Oh yeah, take advantage of that. And you can charge, both boys have tablets, and both of our phones we can charge when we take a drive somewhere. We charge our big lithium-ion battery when we take a drive. And then if it's not so hot that we need the air conditioning, I put just a 2,000 watt generator, one of the 3 that we have. Instead of me running them in parallel, I run just one. And we can charge all of our devices, including the big lithium-ion battery. It runs for a couple hours, barely uses any gas, and then we just, start over the next day. And it's astounding how we are able to function totally normal by barely drawing any power.
That's true. And our refrigerator runs on the propane, and our stove is propane as well. So.
And if you want to know how long those canisters last, okay, so most rigs are sold with the 20-pound canister, the typical barbecue grill. We happen to have 30-pound, which is 7 gallons. So we have 2 7-gallon tanks. One of those tanks lasts us just about a month, and that is to run the refrigerator, to cook 3 meals, sometimes 4 meals a day on the oven, and on the stove, and then on occasion run the heat. I think for 7 gallons of propane for an entire month, that's pretty awesome.
That was really good.
I had it filled yesterday, in fact, and we had completely run it out 7 gallons in a month.
Why the refrigerator was
flashing. Yeah. Well, I knew what it was, but it was like, okay, let's figure this one out. We'll switch it over to the other one, and everything works just fine. I went to have that filled up, and it was $18. For a month. These utility costs are very expensive. Etiquette is a big thing on BLM and U.S. or national U.S. forest lands. And there is no written code out there, but you start to learn that. So some of the key points here are: don't park too close to the person that's already in an area near you. Keep your distance. And you're going to know by their body language right out of the gates if they want to be spoken to or not. If you feel like you're uncomfortable with someone, we've been in this situation before too, you know what? Just say hi. How you doing on water? This is one of those key points. And sometimes they didn't want to talk, or they didn't like people, but when someone offers them water and they're low, you've just made a friend, and no longer are you concerned about this person. So that's one of those key points. But some of the other etiquette, Rose, what do you think some of the other etiquettes?
Like your generators, right?
Oh,
You want to
man.
park far, and you don't want to run the generators all hours of the day. Usually,
Run it intermittently.
yeah. And then no later than like, 8,
9.
9.
I say 9 o'clock is the
Right.
max.
I think so. Or no one else around, then go for it.
You can run them as long as you want if there's no one there. But if there is someone around you,
Just
do
be
not
considerate.
overrun the
Yeah.
generator.
Be aware of, if you're on BLM land, like OHVs running around. People might be actually shooting on the land somewhere. Just,
Be aware of this.
Be aware.
It's
Also,
to share.
yeah, leave it better than you found it. Please pick up your trash and pick up everyone else's trash, because we've seen a lot of trash. It's getting kind of bad out here.
Yeah.
So we pick it up, and you should too.
I'm disgusted by it.
Yeah.
I'm blown away that humans are capable of coming onto land like this and just leaving their trash. You packed it in, pack it out.
It's not that hard.
Please.
Just pick it up. You have 2 hands.
Public service announcement, clean up after yourself.
Yeah.
So if you pull into these sites and you see a lot of trash,
Yeah.
don't pull away and say, I'm not staying there, it's dirty. And if it's a perfect spot, take a bag out and clean it up. I mean, I have the boys run out and clean up the trash, and I think they got 3 pounds of shells.
Yeah, bullet
Here.
casings. Yeah.
And I guess you could recycle that, but we don't really have the means to do that, so we throw it away. But I usually leave these sites with extra trash bags of other people's trash. So really think about that when you pull in these sites, not to leave extra things and to leave it better than you found it.
And one more point about etiquette is those fire restrictions. Be aware of them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Be aware. And if you're shooting guns on BLM land, be aware of that too, because that can start fires. And usually if there's a fire restriction, you can't shoot either. You can't have fires. One of the best ways to know is to use Twitter with the I guess it's
BLM.
BLM and National Forest Service.
Yeah, there's like a fire BLM, fire something, fire watch. Just look up BLM and you should find some of that.
In fact, as we are shooting this, the state of Arizona is basically, the forests are on fire. So they shut down 100% of the BLM and National Forest lands.
Right, it's all shut
You
down.
can't camp for free there. And
Not right
if
now.
even if you're in a paid campground, you may also be in a situation where you are asked to leave.
Yep.
So be aware of these things, and if you are in a fire restriction or the likelihood of a fire is high, don't light a fire. Don't shoot a gun.
I don't think you would anyways, but yeah, don't. So it's hot out here when you have to put your camera in the freezer.
Yeah, we're like in the middle of a great shoot, and it says camera too hot, shutting down. But it's only
We're
like
not
90
shutting
some
down.
degrees.
You can't shut down. Okay, so now you're boondocking and you've decided you really enjoy it and you want to do more. And maybe you're thinking, okay, I want to upgrade now. I want to get a little more solar, different batteries, or a generator. We still recommend that you kind of start backwards and kind of work your way up and figure out really what your wattage and your usage is and what you use on a daily basis.
Okay, let me back up for 1 second. If you want to nerd out and quantify all of your watt usage, that's fine. But you can guesstimate that pretty easily.
Well, that's
you
what
have
I
a good
mean,
idea
yeah.
of what you're using.
Yeah.
And let me also say, we don't affiliate with anything or anyone right now. I don't even know if we will. But a lot of the social media and or other YouTube channels, and I'm not bashing anyone, I'm just saying that a lot of them will push certain brands of lithium and this and that. Yeah, but they're also making a commission off of those things. I could care less about that stuff. My suggestion, and always has been, is start with what you have. When I was a motorcycle rider, ride what you got. Don't look for that great motorcycle. Don't spend all kinds of money on this rig that you don't need to
or
spend.
solar or batteries,
Okay,
you don't even know anything about it.
Right. Let's touch on this solar.
Okay.
Let me tell you what we have. We have 340 watts, so that's 2 panels,
Right.
and a charge controller. It came with this thing. It's a ZAMP charge controller, and the previous owner put a second panel on, and we have 2 deep cycle marine wet batteries. They're inexpensive. I believe they're a Walmart brand, and the thing functions just fine. First thing in the morning, it's recharging our batteries, and by 10 a.m., they're almost at full capacity.
If we're in a good amount of
sunny
sun,
area.
yeah.
And then that will last us all day and through into the next morning. We do conserve, like we discussed earlier, we completely conserve. But let's break this down for a second, because I really want to say this. And I have come across people in dispersed camping, they're like, I've got 1,200 watts of solar, and I've got 10 lithium ion battle-born batteries, and I've got the, I've got my 4,000 watt inverter, and well, great, that's awesome.
That's good.
But that's $20,000. So let's break that. Let's say you spend $18,000 and you cover the top of your rig with solar, and you put 6 or 8 lithium ion batteries and your inverter and the professional work to install this, and the wires, very expensive on wires, and your bus boards and everything that you need to do this appropriately. You can't just throw any wire on there. You have to look at the ohms, you have to look at the capacity and the draw on that. So let's say that's $18,000. All right, that's $49 a day for dispersed camping to cover that for 1 year. You know what we spend on our gas? And about $5 a day to run our rig.
Generators.
For our 2 generators to run, and that is running them all day on a 95-degree day.
Yeah.
We stay comfortable inside. Our 2 solar panels, yes, they came with the rig, so I guess you could factor that in somehow. The generators were purchased by the previous owner, but I did buy an additional one. They were $1,000 each. But that really comes down to, now that we own those things, $5 a day in utilities.
Right. So if you have that really expensive solar setup and batteries, you really have to be out here for like 10 years to make it worth your while. And no one really knows that.
Yeah, you may not keep that rig that long.
Yeah. So start with what you have and just start slowly with those.
Figure out what you need.
Yeah.
And figure out the least expensive way. Would it be super cool, forget bragging rights, but it would be super cool to have 1,200 watts and a huge bank of lithium and all the right stuff, and to think nothing of it, of being able to run your air conditioning on those batteries and know that tomorrow you're going to completely recharge and not even worry about it, or run your heaters.
It'd be nice.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
But I cannot justify that expense, and I don't feel like you need to either.
Right.
There's there's waste, and then there's being efficient.
Right.
So only get what you need when you start dispersed camping, and then build up from there.
Right. Ready to upgrade. So
let's talk about solar. There are so many considerations to make before expanding what you have. I'm no expert, but I have learned quite a bit in doing. First of all, know what you need. Secondly, know how much this system is going to weigh. When you bought your RV, it came with a sticker on it that said you can only place this much weight for storage on here. Sometimes it's 1,000 pounds. If it's a toy hauler, it might be 3,000 pounds. But if you're living in your rig and you're boondocking all the time and you're carrying full tanks of water, make sure that you do not exceed your weight by putting 200 pounds of cables and 6 solar panels and 6 lithium batteries, and it's going to cost a lot of money, but it's also going to weigh a lot. So keep in mind the weight of this system before designing something that is too big for what your rig can carry. And the third thing that needs to be considered is, where are you going to keep your rig? If you're staying in an environment that's hot all the time, it makes a difference where and what batteries you buy. If you're staying in an environment that is cool or gets very cold, that also makes a difference in what type of battery you buy. So look into those things and learn that, and speak and consult with a professional before you put something together that may not suit your needs, because this is an expensive upgrade. So look at your lifestyle too. Do you really need this? Do you need the creature comforts that you were probably trying to shed to begin with by going full-time? So yeah, it's nice, but look at your return on investment. Is it going to be worth it? So those are the 3 things, plus that last little tidbit, that I think are very important before considering improving what you have on your rig.
All right, one more thing. Let's talk a little bit about social media and how it can kind of skew how this all looks. Yes, you may have some beautiful areas to boondock on, and it may look awesome. You might be the only person there, or actually you might not be the only person there. And this life can be, you know, BLM can be dusty, a little dirty.
Oh, it's dusty.
Yeah, some places
it's dirty.
are just dustier than others.
Just, you know, good luck keeping a clean tow vehicle or a clean rig. It just don't even bother.
It's not always rainbows, and you know, it's not as easy.
Yeah, there's complications. So you might run out of water. Your propane runs out. Your generator doesn't work.
Yeah.
There are complications, and you need to carry tools to prepare for these things. Being stranded does not work. It's not an option.
No.
So you have to be prepared for these things.
Right.
So social media has really done a great job of broadcasting a lot of information, but sometimes we don't always want to share the information with everyone, and that is extremely selfish. I understand that, but these lands and sharing the coordinates and where every single boondocking site is good in some ways, and in other ways I feel like the wrong people will utilize this land, and they like to party and they like to leave trash and not respect the land or others around that land. So we're conflicted when we share this information. So please, if you are on the receiving end of this, take care of those lands and love them as much as we do.
That's right, because like many of us full-time RVers, boondockers, these public lands is where we live.
That's our home.
Yeah. So
we don't own it. We all own it together.
That's right.
But that means we're all responsible for taking care of it.
That's right.
So please, and thank you for taking care of this land.
Yes. Oh no, with the chairs, I feel like I'm in a whoa rocking chair. Woo.
Yeah, they say the grounds on BLM land not always at level.
I think they're right.
They're not very level.
Let's get some leveling blocks out. We got our haircuts yesterday. That was great. Yeah. What, 7 months for me?
Did a good job.
Just goes to show you can go a long time. It really doesn't matter.
You mean like showering?
Not quite as long as that. Thanks for watching. We hope this gives you inspiration to give boondocking a try. Or maybe now you have all this information and you think, maybe it's not for you. And
that's okay.
That's okay. We're just here to inform and help out.
It's worth it, but if you like to be connected, then
all the time.
That's also cool. You know,
totally okay. And you
there's
have the
room
means
for everyone
to do that, you know. And that's fine.
So, you know, if you like these videos, I sincerely appreciate you watching. LAS and Bellas, and
like and
let's
subscribe.
Let's hang out some more.
Yeah.
We wish you well.